Alright, let's go over some likes and dislikes on this bike. I'm coming off a 350 KTM 4-stroke. So the first thing that I noticed right away going to a 2-stroke is I can ride one-handed on this thing through the woods, over the logs and everything, because I'd call it a gentle giant. The throttle response down low is so easy to control. It's not snappy or jerky or lurchy, or it's not like it goes from like 0% to 10%. It's really easy to trail ride because the power is so tame. The next thing I like the most is the oil injection, which is almost a standard on enduro trail bikes these days. Little filler cap right up here. You put your 2-stroke oil in, you can get about 5 tanks of gas out of a tank of oil. There is a light here on the dash that'll light up when that starts getting low. And if that light comes on, you can finish out your gas tank before you need to put more oil in. Next would be fuel injection. I mean, it's about 45 degrees here in northern Wisconsin today, and didn't have to do any jetting or anything. Just, you know, let the motor warm up and ride it easy until it's up to temperature. And then let it rip. Next thing would be, and this is so huge for 24. Some people don't like it, but the electronic power valve, I think, is a game changer for the 4-stroke guys. Because on the XCW for sure, it really milds it. I don't want to say it's got mellow power, because if I crack it, it's got plenty of power. There's no delay there. I mean, this bike rips, but it doesn't hit like a traditional 2-stroke. It's got a very linear power curve. Like, I mean, you can't even feel the power valve opening, other than you can feel the power. But it doesn't light up the rear tire like a traditional mechanical controlled power valve. So it puts the power to the ground. It just makes it easier to ride, and it's just great. Some people are complaining that, you know, the 300 XCW doesn't have as much power as the TPI, and you know, if you're a younger guy in your 20s or maybe even 30s and you like to light the rear tire up a lot, go get an XC and put a headlight on it. But the 300 XCW, to me, it's a hard enduro bike, and to me, it's a phenomenal trail bike. I think this is the best trail bike, on the market that you can buy. I said this before in a previous video, The Exact forks are a lot better than the Explorer forks. They're plusher, so you can set them softer, but when you hit something hard, they don't blow through the stroke like the Explorer forks would do. And I'm not saying the Explorer forks are bad, they're a great fork, but the Exact forks are just better, and you have to pay for it. You know, and in all reality, unless you're a A or B rider, like, you're not gonna notice it, you know. If you got a dirt bike and you're enjoying riding, that's what you're supposed to be doing. That's what it's all about. So it doesn't matter if you're on a brand new bike or not. Just go ride what you got. Why I like this, part of the reason I like this bike so much is that it's so easy to trail ride. It's kind of like riding a CRF 230 when you just want to go slow, you know. It doesn't want to get away from you. It's just super mild, manageable power down low. Then if you click it down a couple gears, I mean, it rips. It rips. You know, I'm sure it's not as fast as a 300 XC, but how much power do you really need? I gotta check. I think I got like 17 hours on this bike so far or something, and there's never been a single time, even, you know, big sandy hills and stuff where you're pinned all the way up it, where I've been thinking, man, I wish I had more power. So KTM did a phenomenal job on this bike. I'll leave it at that. Alright, on to dislikes. I'm not a huge fan of the 2-in-1 button over here. I like that they moved everything over to one side, but you do have to push the buttons pretty hard, and I mean, this is a really small complaint. It's not even a complaint. There's a very good chance that button might break in and get easier to use the more it gets used. Oh shit. Oh. Good spot to drop an ankle. This would be brutal on my 4-stroke. It's easy on this bike. The only other thing, shut this off for a second. The only other thing I'm not a fan of is they changed from the old style skid plate that had 2 bolts up in front. The skid plate dropped. You just shimmy it out of there and it came out. This new style has 2 bolts, one on each side over here, and then it's got one down here, right here, and then one on the other side. The problem is, I don't know if you can see that, here's a bolt right here. It's almost impossible to get this bolt out, to get the skid plate off, to do a clean oil change without putting it up on a stand. So you have to put it up on a stand so you can get the kickstand out of the way, to get this bolt out, drop it back off the stand, take the other 3 bolts out, do your oil change, put the and then do the reverse order. You got to take it off and on and off the stand twice. That, again, I mean, this bike is absolutely amazing. There's, you know, like the start switch and the skid plate bolt is freaking peanuts. I mean, there's nothing to pick apart about it. And this is a bone stock bike. I don't plan to change anything on here. I'm not going to do any head changes or mapping changes or exhausts or any of that stuff. I'm just going to leave it stock because it's perfect just the way it is. And today, like, I'm out doing what I would consider some dual sport riding. So I'm running forest roads, 2-track, and then, you know, a little bit of wood stuff. And I think it's perfect bone stock, just the way it is. This is the first bike out of all the bikes I bought, and I've been dirt biking for 30 years, but I want to say the past 5-6 years I bought a new bike every year, trying out all kinds of different brands and different bikes, and every single one of them needed something changed. They were either too lean from the factory, or the forks were too stiff, or they needed to be lowered, or something had to be changed. Even on that 22 KTM XCW 4-stroke, I ended up doing a tuner and changing the TPS, and just did a lot of things just to try to smoothen out that low-end throttle response. It was really jumpy and jerky when I first got it, and it's better, but it is nowhere near as smooth as a 302 stroke that's fuel injected with an electronic power valve. Like, this thing is just amazing. But yeah, even the seat, like, I've had a lot of the seat concept seats. I find nothing wrong with the seat. I plan to leave it completely bone stock. I got one more dislike, and I haven't actually ran into this problem yet, but the fuel pump on the old units used to be mounted down here. Now it's mounted up somewhere around in here in the tank, and then the fuel pump sits in a pocket. And the idea is that when you're riding around, you know, if you're riding around and shit like this and the fuel is sloshing around, it'll slosh up into that pocket and you'll continue to get fuel. Well, if you're just running down a forest road, once your fuel level gets below that pocket and you're not sloshing the fuel around, your fuel pump's going to run dry. And people have had it happen, and a lot of people say, you know, if your fuel level gets down to a certain level, just make sure you pull it up on one wheel once in a while, or, you know, grab the brakes, you know, whatever you got to do to get the fuel sloshing around so that you don't run your fuel pump dry. I've been dual sporting this bike around, running trails and a little bit of road and stuff like that, and I just, as soon as that fuel light comes on, which is, you still got like half a tank of gas left, I just get gas right away. Yeah, last week when I was running, I did 37 miles of like dual sport riding, and I burned a gallon of gas, and the low fuel light had not come on yet. So, you know, if you can fill up every 30-40 miles, you're going to be fine. And again, I have not had an issue with the fuel pump not picking up fuel on this bike, but I have not run it down that low. I try to keep it as full as I can, and, you know, if the fuel light comes on, I get fuel right away. There's really nothing else. There's nothing else to pick apart this bike. This is a premium bike. This is, in my opinion, the best trail bike that's ever been made by any manufacturer ever, because it's easy to take it out and, you know, go screwing around on rocks and logs and stuff like that. You can still run it on the road. You can run it on 2-track. The only downside versus the 4-stroke is the fuel economy. I mean, the fuel economy is a little bit less. On a KTM 350 or 500 doing dual sport stuff, you can get 100 miles out of a gas tank. On this, if you could run it bone dry, you're probably looking closer to 80. If you're really being easy on the throttle and short shifting it and trying to consume the least amount of fuel as possible. But other than, there's really not a, you know, like, I mean, I'm not a big fan of these things, you know, and how huge these handguards are, but it's an awesome freaking bike, man. So if you're thinking about getting one, I just go to the dealership tomorrow and just go buy one. You're not going to be disappointed. Oh, one of my favorite things to do on this bike is go places you're not supposed to go because it's hard, And this just makes it so much easier. It's still a challenge. Got a stick caught there. But I don't feel like I'm fighting the bike, or I'm fighting the motor. I feel like this is the bike that was designed to do this.